The New York Rangers are in absolute need of making some pretty major upgrades in this upcoming offseason, as this team has been quite disappointing in the past couple seasons here. Although, yes, they have had some playoff success, this team has mostly had all that kind of success. They're, making multiple different Eastern Conference finals. The main reason being, Igor Shesterkin there and him kind of carrying this team along. So, even with the way this team's been built in the past there, it still has not been built the best way. So we absolutely need to see some major upgrades with this team on both the forward side of things and the defense side of things, in my opinion. And we have a kind of interesting piece of news here coming out from Vince Mercogliano, a very reputable New York Rangers insider/reporter. And he basically came out here in an article and said how K'Andre Miller potentially wants to stay and sign an extension with the New York Rangers. So in today's video, we're going to kind of talk about this situation here with K'Andre. Should he get that extension? What could it possibly look like? And we also have some kind of quotes here from K'Andre and some other quotes here as well, talking about K'Andre Miller, kind of how he's played this season, and also, kind of what we could possibly see going forward, as we know he is one of those kind of guys who, absolutely has all the kind of, talent on paper. You look at his kind of size there, him being 6'5" there. He's got that size, that skating ability, those hands, that playmaking ability at moments there as well. Just the all-around game at moments, it looks fantastic. But there's other moments, and for the most part there, where we're seeing him just not be the best player in the world. He's obviously never going to be, but we see some moments when he's looking like a complete liability out there. Now, yes, he has some moments when he's looking like a potential star player, absolutely in a true kind of top pairing or even top four caliber defenseman, but there are way too many inconsistencies in his game where we're seeing him be a liability way too much there, and we're seeing him, not use his body and his strength to his advantage, and he just gets kind of muscled off the puck there, or a much smaller forward, for example, is just kind of shielding him off there because K'Andre isn't using his size right, or obviously his strength. So there are a lot of issues with K'Andre's game. At moments, yes, he looks great. At moments, he does not, though. So that's kind of where I am a little hesitant on giving this guy an extension, because I think this team needs to upgrade the spot where K'Andre is. If he's going to be that second pairing kind of guy, I think he definitely can be that kind of a player. But on this Rangers team, we just have not seen it enough. We see it at moments and flashes of him being a top pairing or top four caliber defenseman, but we just don't see it enough. So in my opinion, we desperately need to see a pretty major upgrade happen on the back end. And with this team already having, given an extension to Urho Vakanainen, this team also, previously gave some pretty massive extensions to guys like Lafreniere and Igor Shesterkin. Then you get that extension to a guy like Will Borgen after he was traded from the Seattle Kraken. He got that $4.1 million deal per season. And then you also add in a guy at the deadline there like Carson Soucy, who I think can be at moments potentially a solid defenseman for this team, but he's also going to make $3.25 million. So I think this defense core definitely has some solid pieces there, but it needs another kind of true top four caliber defenseman, like a high-end top four caliber guy or top pairing caliber guy. And if you bring back K'Andre Miller, I just don't see how that's going to be possible unless we saw some major moves on the forward side of things there. This team is just not going to have enough cap space to go out there and make the necessary kind of upgrades on the forward side of things. And on the back end, if you are bringing back a guy like K'Andre Miller, and especially if you're not trading away a guy like Chris Kreider. So in my opinion, trading away a guy like Kreider is an absolute must for this team that opens up a lot of money and allows you to potentially, go out there and make some pretty major kind of additions. And also a guy like K'Andre, if you don't sign him back, you're saving a good amount of money there. My guess is going to be, if he does get that extension there, which it doesn't seem like he's looking for some, 7 or 8 year deal necessarily, but my guess for his next cap, it definitely could be around that kind of $6.5 million mark. That would not be the most insane thing in the world. And although I wouldn't be happy with that, I think that would be an overpay. I think that's kind of what the market is potentially kind of suggesting here with how much the cap has gone up there, with him having, arbitration eligibility. And sometimes I feel like that does kind of favor the player a bit. I don't necessarily think that he's going to get much less than $6 million, if not maybe a bit more than 6. So in my opinion, you got to trade away a guy like K'Andre Miller unless you really have some kind of crazy feeling that he's going to completely kind of turn things around there and be that consistent player, which he has not kind of proven to be over his entire career pretty much. In my opinion, it is time to move on from Keandre there. He probably still has a decent amount of value, so maybe you can get back, a nice young defenseman or a nice young forward there to maybe take the spot of Chris Kreider, or maybe you get a good kind of third line center. I mean, I don't exactly know. It's just these are options here to trade away a guy like Kreider, trade away a guy like, Keandre Miller. Don't give him that big extension or even a small extension there that could cost, around that kind of $6 million mark per season, where that really hinders your ability to actually make upgrades. Because if this team goes into next season there and they add in another kind of okay, bottom pairing defenseman and then call it that there with, Keandre, being re-signed, and you have like Susie and Urho and Morgan and Schneider and Foxy, I mean, that's not a terrible defense core, but it's obviously not very good. It's not a great defense core, and it's not a good enough defense core to actually win a Stanley Cup, in my opinion. So that's kind of why I don't think there's a way that we can see Keandre Miller brought back and also see the necessary kind of upgrades on the back end. So that is why I absolutely think trading away a guy like Keandre Miller is an absolute must. And now taking a look at a quote here from Vince Mercogliano's article from, Keandre Miller, as he ends up saying, quote, "I had a hard time at the beginning of the year just blocking out noise." He said, "Things were getting to me that usually don't. I just tried to push those things to the side the last couple of months and come to the rink with a smile on my face and play hockey. I tried to get back that feeling of confidence and just bringing my energy and upbeat vibes that I know I can." And obviously, Keandre, definitely seems like a good guy and all, and I think definitely can still potentially be, that true kind of consistent top 4 caliber defenseman at the NHL level. I definitely think that is still a possibility, but I just think whether it is, some mental stuff there where he's getting in his head too much there, and that's a part of the, the lack of confidence, which is kind of reflecting in his play. I don't exactly know what it is, but he shows flashes absolutely of being that top 4 caliber guy, that top pairing caliber guy at moments, but it's just not consistent enough to where I want to see this team go out there and pay him some big, big bucks, and to where this team would probably not be able to actually make some real improvements on the back end. So in my opinion, he's got to be dealt away. I'm hopeful that he does still have some good value left, but him and Chris Kreider, I absolutely think are must trades for this team if they want to get back on track towards potentially kind of winning that cup and really building this roster the potential kind of right way. And taking a look here at another piece of the article where he ends up saying, perhaps the Rangers can leverage Miller's perceived upside to address other areas of need while identifying a capable replacement. But if he hits his ceiling, it would be a stinging instance of failing to develop their own only to watch him flourish elsewhere. It sounds like Miller is hoping to stay put in New York with a strategic short-term deal that takes him to his 2027 UFA summer, possibly in the cards. So that's also where it's not really an ideal spot to go out there and, sign him to a very short-term deal, which ends up taking him to his UFA years, his unrestricted free agency years, which, would not be an ideal spot because right now, a team trading for him has his RFA rights, so they can go out there and negotiate whatever kind of contract they want to. Now, would a team go out there and trade for like Keandre to look to give him a 7 massive year deal possibly? I don't exactly know. I find that a little hard to believe that a team would want to go out there and just commit a ton of money, like $6+ million on like a 7-year deal or something like that right away to Keandre. I'm not quite sure that it's 100% what would possibly happen, but I just think that he probably has more value if you trade him right now instead of waiting until he's potentially getting closer to his UFA years and his contract's already kind of locked into that to end on his UFA year, which I just don't think would be the best spot for the Rangers to be in, while also putting them in a spot where maybe they end up losing him for nothing at that point. Whether or not he ends up kind of taking those steps forward in his game or not, he could still end up walking away if they let him get there. So I just think ideally they don't lock him up this summer. They don't give him even a short-term extension. They just look to trade him away, get back some value for him. Maybe you're able to get, a nice young forward or a nice young defenseman or a few good draft picks that you use in another trade to go out there and get someone else. I don't exactly know, but there are definitely some options. And I just think trading away Keandre Miller and trading away Chris Kreider is what this team really kind of needs to do if they want to make some serious upgrades in this upcoming offseason, which I desperately think is an absolute must. If this team wants to get back on track to potentially winning a cup, they need to make some major upgrades, and trading away a guy like Keandre and not giving them that big extension, which could cost you, $6+ million, I think is probably the right move. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on K'Andre Miller. Do you want to see the Rangers re-sign him? Do you want to see him get traded away? What do you think the Rangers could get back in return? Let me know your thoughts on K'Andre, this whole entire situation, and also on the Rangers as a whole. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.